Today on Locked On Red Wings, we're going to go over some free agent options as free agency opens at noon today to hopefully give you guys an idea of who the Red Wings could possibly target.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I'm a producer at WWJ News Radio 950, while Scotty is a freelance journalist for the Detroit News as well as the host of Locked On Tigers. And Scotty, today, much like yesterday and a lot recently, we are going to continue to talk about free agent options. And we did a whole mini series kind of broadly covering a few different options for each position. But now that free agency opens, by the time people are listening to this, noon today, we know actually who will be available on the free agent market in minutes or hours ago, depending on what time you're listening to this. So I feel like it's pertinent for us to go back and kind of narrow in on a few different options that the Red Wings realistically could go after. And obviously, you and I don't know for certain what Steve Yzerman's attitude is for this offseason, if he's trying to take a large step forward, if he's looking for more Band-Aid pieces. But regardless, nonetheless, there is still a lot of very talented players that kind of fit the mold for what Yzerman wants to do one way or the other, if depending on what he wants to go for. So, and I think the biggest name on both of our lists that we are 99% sure is hitting the free agent market at this point, based on reports that we have heard, is Ondrej Palat of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Scotty, why or why not do you believe Ondrej Palat would be a good fit with the Detroit Red Wings, if you even believe so?
No, for sure. I mean, I think Palat's a guy that I think most people would agree, can fit into pretty much any system, which obviously makes him a guy who is going to get paid this summer. And he doesn't have numbers that jump off the page and are like insanely high point totals or everything, but he's a really solid two-way guy. And at the end of the day, I've been saying this all offseason, really, but at the end of the day, like, anybody is going to be a step up from like what we have. And that's not to say that he wouldn't be a step up for most teams, because he would be. But it's a really intriguing one. You know, what is he, 31?
Yeah, 31 years old.
So it's an intriguing one timing wise. I think if you were to go after somebody like that, that would be a long-term deal type of situation. And it definitely makes it interesting with the timeline that the Wings are going for. But I mean, putting that onto this, forward core would be awesome.
Yeah, and so he's a left winger, and that's probably the hardest sell on this, is that the team, out of all the positions, I mean, they just drafted a bunch of left wingers. Not that any of those guys are going to be here anytime soon, but your left wingers as it sits are Bertuzzi, Jacob Vrana. Michael Rasmussen's probably going to play more center now that they've gotten rid of Carter Rowney and Mitchell Stevens, who both spent time. But you got Giovanni Smith. So there is and of course, Robbie Fabry has been playing a lot of left wing when he's healthy, that is. I know he's recovering from an ACL injury. So, I mean, there is an opportunity for Ondrej Palat to be here. And at 31, he's not so old that he's like over the hill and declining yet. He still plays at a very high level. He had a relative expected goals per 60 of 0.12 while putting up 49 points in 77 games played. So he's above a half point per game. He's like a really good.
I mean, you're bringing him in for his defense at the end of the day.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
That's still solid production. And like, that's, everybody loved the production we saw out of guys like Vladdy or whatever this year. No, those were like just over a point a game or half a point a game players rather. But at the end of the day, the sell on Palat is you're getting a hell of a defensive forward.
I'm trying to find his player card here, And he's a defensive forward, but he not to undersell his offensive capabilities either. I mean, over a half point per game. And granted, playing with the Tampa Bay Lightning is huge, but
For sure.
you'd be paying a lot for this guy because at 31 years old, he's going to be looking for term and money. And the Red Wings have term and, well, I mean, everyone has term to spare, but they have plenty of money to spare.
Right.
But you'd be bringing him in to be immediately a top 6 forward left winger on this team, and he would immediately make this team a lot better. But you'd have to fork over, a lot of money for a player like this. He's in the 77th percentile, and he is very strong defensively. He's in the 66th percentile defensively at even strength, while also being 71 percentile offensive even strength for an overall 77 percentile. He's a very sound forward. And obviously,
lot of Selk votes in the career of
absolutely
Ondrej Palat.
And he's obviously, everyone knows at this point that the connection Steve Yzerman has with Tampa Bay, we don't have to, sell that all over again. But, there is, with that connection there, it does make it a little bit more realistic that Ondrej Palat would come to a Detroit because of the cap space that he can offer them, with, not that he doesn't want to ever win a Stanley Cup again, but he already has 2 under his belt. So maybe now his focus shifts on, helping a younger team make bank or let me rephrase that. Helping a younger team get better while he makes bank with that team because of the cap space. The Wings have the capabilities of signing him. I don't know where he'd slot in at the lineup because I know we as Red Wings fans are sold on Vrana and Bertuzzi being your top 6 wingers, but you bring Palat in, he immediately usurps probably both those guys, in my opinion, especially with the success that he had on the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Absolutely. No, and that's what they talked about. A lot of players on the team talked about the importance of the veterans on the team. So bringing in a 31-year-old who plays such a solid two-way game on both ends of the ice and isn't going to be elite at anything, but I have a hard time believing you'd be paying him to be elite at anything. I think slap some years onto that and give him some security term lengthwise, and I mean that's going to be a guy that a lot of teams are going to want to go after.
Yeah, because the two big question marks with Ondrej Palat for our purposes here on this podcast is we don't know how long Steve Yzerman has planned, and I know the plan's always shifting because it depends on how these players develop. But how long does Steve Yzerman have in his head currently it will take for the Red Wings to become a competitive team? Because at 31 years old, if he thinks it could be relatively soon, like the next couple of years, you pay him that long-term contract. You give him that long contract so that he and the Red Wings are still successful when he is still an effective left winger. That makes sense. The question just becomes, and there's no way we could know the answer to this because only Steve Yzerman knows the answer to this currently, where we are in the rebuild. And he has been very clear that he's not going to show those cards.
For sure. Yeah, you won't know until you know. You know what I mean? Like that's not one where you're gonna be able to predict it. I think at one point we're just gonna make a move where we're all in unison, like okay, like the time is now. But yeah, this is also a signing that you can do and not necessarily change the direction of the rebuild. Like if this is your big signing for the offseason, you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
you wouldn't really change the trajectory on a year-to-year basis, but he's someone that when you are competitive again, if you still have him and he is 34, 35 years old, 33, 34, whatever, can still provide valuable minutes. Like I really like it. And that's not, groundbreaking. A lot of teams are going to like it and he's going to be a relatively hot commodity there. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what kind of money he gets. I think that's my biggest thing because between age and everybody knows he's valuable defensively, but 31-year-old that's half a point a game-ish. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what kind of money he gets. But I think the bigger thing for him is if somebody ponies up 4 or 5 years, I think it's over.
Yeah, and so that's really gonna when it comes down to these pretty much everyone we are going to talk about today, we feel is a realistic option for the Detroit Red Wings, depending on what direction they head in.
Johnny Gaudreau next. Yep.
Sure. Listen, I let's not get into that today. We actually did a whole episode on Johnny Gaudreau
we
like a
did.
month ago, so go check that out if you want to listen to our thoughts on Johnny Gaudreau. But the next guy I want to talk about is another guy who would fit into the forward core, and I think would fit incredibly well. And a lot of Red Wings Twitter actually is, and I know already is in agreement on that. And that's Vincent Trocheck. But before we can talk about Vincent Trocheck, I got to talk to you guys today about BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's NHL playoffs and Major League Baseball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. And BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, including MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. We're giving you guys what we believe is realistic options for the Red Wings to target in free agency, as that opens up at noon today by the time you're listening to this. We're going to move now into the center position. I almost called you Steve. Thinking about Steve a lot. I think about him all the time.
Wow. Okay.
Scotty, Vincent Trocheck is a really good option. We talk a lot about the Red Wings forward depth. This past season, it was quality over quantity, and they're letting a lot of forwards walk this offseason because they just don't feel like they need them, and that opens up opportunities to really make it better. Pew Suter served as the second line center this offseason, or not the offseason, this past season, and he played I think all 82 games for the Red Wings. He was there. He filled a hole, but realistically, he's not a number 2 center. And while they drafted Marco Kasper, he's realistically not going to be ready for at least 1 or 2 more years. Get a guy now if you want to really take a step forward towards competitiveness so that these guys are ready. Now you're just flush with quality. Vincent Trocheck is a guy who I think fits the bill as a second-line center who will not break the bank, but will be not just serviceable, but I think a quality second-line center for the Detroit Red Wings in this upcoming year. With the Carolina Hurricanes this past season, he played 81 games, had 21 goals, and had 30 assists for a total of 51 points. And he is only 29 years old, 2 years younger than Ondrej Palat. That doesn't sound like a big deal, but he's still on, people say, the right side of 30. I like the idea of Vincent Trocheck a lot in the winged wheel because I don't think you're going to have to break the bank to get him. But also, he'll be a quality second-line center for this team for years to come.
This is my favorite one that we're talking about, I think. I mean, this is, again, we talk about dudes that are forwards that are solid defensively. Like he is very much that. And another guy that's gotten some Selk votes over the years. This is my favorite one. We've talked about center depth a ton. We've talked about how porous the defense has been over the last however many seasons. But this past season, it was really rough. And I don't know, 2 birds with 1 stone kind of thing. You get someone that's been pretty solid defensively, add it to your forward core while also handling center depth. I mean, he's had a couple of, 60, 70 point seasons as well. Like this is a guy that I think would slot in and be an uber effective 2C on this team.
Yeah, and so here's his player card, courtesy of Evolving Hockey. You guys should definitely subscribe to Evolving Hockey if you haven't already, because it's a fantastic tool if you want to get a little bit better in-depth look of how these players perform off the puck as well as on the puck. He is 63% expected, 63% goals above replacement overall, 63 percentile as a center. And that is, I think perfect for a second line center for what the Wings, in my eyes, are trying to accomplish this offseason. And you can see here, he didn't wow in any one of these categories, but outside of the fact that he took too many penalties, he was a positive asset, even if it was by a marginal percentile. He was a positive asset for the Carolina Hurricanes, and that Carolina Hurricanes team is a good one. That is a good Carolina Hurricanes team. So he, by himself, being a positive asset on that team is something that I really enjoy and believe he'll carry over to the Detroit Red Wings. Plus, there's a little bit of he and Ned know each other, and that camaraderie could be huge in the locker room.
Absolutely. No, I'm confident that these dudes are going to get along or whatever, no matter what. But it just as as who he is as a player. I just think that this fits the bill of what this team needs, what this team lacks currently. He plays the position that this team lacks. His style of play is what this team lacks. Just every possible like box you could check is filled by signing somebody like this.
Well,
I would very much be in favor of it. And like I said, I think he's at the top of my list of people we'll go over today.
and we talk about, and the Red Wings have a lot of centers still on the roster, whether they can play center or wing or whatnot. But I mean, you talk about guys who can play center who are still currently under contract. You know, you already have Larkin, you have Pius Suter, you have Veleno, Rasmussen, and Oscar Sundqvist. And then you're going to have Jonathan Berggren. He'll probably start playing wing, I would imagine, before transitioning to center if that's his long-term role. But I think that the trickle-down effect is huge. And I talked about it yesterday, is you don't pass on better quality just because you have more quantity. I preach that. If there's a better guy on the market who will make your team better now, if you're looking, that is, again, if the Red Wings and Steve Yzerman are planning on getting better now, you don't pass on that just because you already have, Michael Rasmussen on your roster. You already have a center. Go out and get the guy who's going to be better. And so, yeah, this will immediately push Pius Suter down to 3C, but I think he'll thrive. That's the word I was looking
That
for.
sounds
Thrive at
awesome to
3C.
me.
Yeah. And so then your 4C is either going to be Rasmussen or Veleno. I'm okay with that. I think Rasmussen will thrive at the 4C role.
Yeah, no disrespect. I mean, to Suter, I think we talked about it during the season. I think Suter is right at that spot talent wise where he would thrive as a 3C, but 2C is a little in over his head, and this allows that to happen. Center goes from a incredibly shallow position on your team to a relatively deep one in one signing and one move, and that's why I love it so much.
And then, so I guess before we get to the final, and I pulled up Pius Suter's player card, and exactly as I was expecting, he's a slightly above average defensive forward, but he's not very good offensively whatsoever. He's got a percentile of 22%. So third line is perfect for a guy like that. He's a little bit more defensive oriented. But
Trocheck's 29 too, like literally just turned
yeah,
29, like
age-wise, he fits
2 days
perfectly
ago
with,
or whatever.
with
Yeah,
what this team's at.
right. Absolutely.
Let's squeeze in two more forwards before we have to go to break. And this one we're going to do as a pair because, well, they're brothers. And this option is more if they're still trying to bide their time, I would say. Dylan Strome, who just came off a season of playing 2C with the Chicago Blackhawks, much like Pius Suter was the season prior, did not get qualified. And he's a really interesting one because he is the best. Okay, I'm just going to throw up his chart because he is an enigma. This is a guy who just still struggles to stick on teams, but look at his performance this past year with a bad Chicago Blackhawks team. 83 percentile player with the Chicago Blackhawks. His even strength offense was phenomenal. He was expected goals above replacement was over 12, and his defense was not to be sneezed at either. I don't necessarily, he's only 25 years old. So you want to talk about a player who really fits the building core, and you want, if Steve Yzerman's plan this offseason, rather than taking a huge step forward, it's just buy your time and continue to take flyers. Dylan Strome is a huge, take a flyer on this guy. This could be a project player that absolutely pans out. I struggle to even want to use project because he has proven success on a Chicago Blackhawks team that necessarily wasn't that good. Now, granted, I believe he played quite a bit with DeBrincat this past season, which could be why he saw so much success. But at 25 years old with that kind of performance, if you're trying to bide your time another year, sign Dylan Strome to fill role down the middle.
Yeah, for sure. And he's one where, if you bring him in this offseason, if he excels, because, you're bringing another center. If he excels, then beauty, you found more center depth. You found another guy that could potentially, if he takes big strides, could be the 2C that your team needs. And if not, then you're still padding the depth of the center position down low, and you're still looking for that, more prominent, 1-2 punch to kind of put at the top there with Larkin. But you are still solidifying the lower lines of center for when you bring that person in too. So I think that is very much a dude that no matter kind of what happens, and if he completely flops, then again, okay, he's not going to cost you know, you're not going to have to break the bank to get him. I think that it's definitely a guy to look at. I mean, both. I mean, like
Yeah,
Ryan is an interesting conversation as well, but Dylan had what, like just under 50 points and just under 70 games. Like he had, I think, 20 less points than games played. So really, I mean, solid year on a Blackhawks team that was not very good.
yeah, and Ryan Strome, again, like you said, Dylan Strome had 20 goals, over half a point per game with the Chicago Blackhawks, only played 68 games. His brother Ryan Strome, like you said, just now wore an A with the New York Rangers, played on a line with Panarin, actually was DMing John Chick, the host of Lockdown New York Rangers, because I wanted to get a better understanding of why a guy who saw so much success and was a leader in the locker room was getting let go, especially because they're not signing Andrew Kopp. So
Right.
why are they not signing either one of these guys? And he said, well, basically because Ryan Strome is very hit or miss, and he played on a line much like his brother played on a line with Superstar. He played on a line with Panarin, which there was criticism that a lot of his success, just like Dylan, came from playing with a stellar player. And you see here with Ryan Strome, while playing on a better team against better competition, struggled defensively, put up really strong and solid numbers offensively. Ryan Strome, for what it's worth, had 21 goals, 18 primary assists, and 16 secondary assists for a total of 55 points in 74 games played. So more games played than his brother, but both had very similar production numbers. But the overall metrics show that his brother Dylan, who is 4 years younger, had a stronger season by the advanced metrics.
Absolutely. And Strome is what, 4 years older?
Yeah,
Um,
Ryan Strome is 29 years old, while Dylan Strome is 25.
sure. So that would, as far as like the timeline goes of the rebuild, I'm not sure either of them would be too. I'm not sure that anybody would have a problem with any really length of deal for either of those guys because they're both young enough to kind of justify
Sign them both. Let's get both
any
brothers in
any
here.
term deal. Yeah, that would be interesting, eh?
Then get Matthew Strome, the third brother.
Yeah, let's just get all the Stromes
Get all the stalls.
and yeah, all the stalls, all the Stromes. We'll just have the brother team and it'll be awesome.
And so basically, those two options just now were, again, like I said, I'll reiterate. Both the Strome brothers are, if Yzerman decides this is still not the right offseason to do it, and he wants to bring in somebody to fill out the forward core, but not cost a lot and not acquire a lot of term. That's why I like the Strome brothers as those options.
For
Just
sure.
like I like rockauto.com. This
Bang.
episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry? You have computers with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. Save time and money when using Rock Auto. Why choose to spend 30, 50, even 100% more for the same auto parts from your chain store or car dealership? Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. They have everything you could need: brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, and even new carpet. Go explore their easy-to-use website today or find the solution to your auto parts needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck right locked on in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts you will ever need. rockauto.com. Segment 3, Lockdown Red Wings podcast. Scotty, let's move on now to defense. There's two defensemen I am eyeing in this free agency that opens today by the time people are listening to this at noon. And I think both of them actually have a pretty huge upside and also will not cost a fortune to bring in. And that is Brett Kulak of the Edmonton Oilers, who reports are that they're not going to sign him, which is kind of astonishing to me given his advanced metrics and what he can do. And Nikita Zadorov, who I've not heard anything from on his front with the Calgary Flames. Brett Kulak, let's lead off with him. Scotty, Brett Kulak let's see here, get to that right page there. Sorry about that, guys. He played this past season with Montreal before being dealt to the Edmonton Oilers. In that span, he had 21 points in a combined, I do mental math here, guys. Sorry, 74 games played, because Evolving Hockey has them split by each team they played for. So I got to add
played
it up in my head.
56 in Montreal and 18 in Edmonton.
That's 74, right?
Yes, that is
Okay.
74. He had 21. It's actually, I mean, he had 13 points in Montreal in 56 games and 8 points in Edmonton in 18 games to finish out the regular season there. So,
What's
um,
crazy is he, despite how bad the defense was for Edmonton relative to his teammates, he was a .71 plus expected goals for
yeah.
per 60 minutes, which is insanely good. Again, smaller sample size, only 18 games, but that is really good for a defenseman. And they're letting him walk.
Yeah, I mean, we don't need to have the Edmonton conversation. They're just it's a kind of a circus over there. But you know what? 28-year-old lefty D man. Hard to say no to that. Hard to look at the defense as it stands currently, the Detroit Red Wings defense as it stands right now, and say, yeah, I would not be interested in that. Really difficult to say that.
Well, also, let me put a little addendum to that. I don't know for sure if they're letting him walk. He might also just be saying, I want to test the market. So
For
that is
sure.
also very true. But his
But he
player
will be
card is
available, and
astonishing. He will be
there you go.
available. Look
Yeah.
at this.
Yeah,
Insane.
that's a 95th percentile defender there.
He 95th on defense as a defensive defenseman and still 61% offensive. So he provides
really
both
solid.
ends of the ice. He is going to be very good. A great shorthanded PK guy. He is just, for what this team needs, and this team needs defense, for him to be a lefty as well. I mean,
Yep.
hell, sign him. Only 28 years old. Bring him in. He immediately becomes a stud on the defensive side of things for the Detroit Red Wings. I mean, this team needs defense, and here you are with $30 million in cap space still after signing Husso. This guy fits the bill exactly for what the Detroit Red Wings need to sign and do to build the defense and make them better. You know, Vincent Trocheck might have been our guy for the forward core, but this is the guy this offseason on the defensive core.
Correct. 100%. I don't even know if there's really even too much more to say. I think you kind of hit everything. And along with what I said earlier, like, this is a 28-year-old incredible defender D man that is a lefty. I'm not sure how anybody who's a Red Wing fan could look at this and be like, yeah, no, that doesn't sound nice to me. Like, this is right up the team's alley and fits everything perfectly.
I mean, he will come in and immediately become the second best defenseman on this team. Now, most playoff contenders, he'd probably be a second pair defenseman. But on this team, put him on a line with Moritz Seider. I don't care, because this team needs,
even if you wanted to spread it out, even if you wanted to put him down at the second line so that, we didn't have just like one overpowering line and then the rest being below average or whatever. Even if you wanted to do it that way, like, that's, he can handle being the best defender on a line and still play on a productive team. So, like, I'm very, very down.
So, and then the other guy that I'm looking at is not as efficient in the offensive zone, but is still a strong defensive defenseman, and that is Calgary Flames' Nikita Zadorov, who is still, to this day, not signed an extension. So chances are it's likely he is going to play the open market. 70th percentile defensively, but as you can see, there is a lot left to be desired on the offensive side of the puck to be at just a percentile of 25th overall as a defenseman. That leaves a lot left to be desired, but the fact that his even strength defense is 70th percentile does still kind of attract me to him, because this team struggles defensively. So I don't care if you struggle offensively. I mean, I do care. But right now, this team really needs to shore up defensively. And Nikita Zadorov could be a good third pair defenseman on this team that is just struggling to get anyone on the ice of NHL caliber this past season.
Yeah, this is a signing that certainly pretty much any signing is going to help the defense on this team. And yeah, this would be kind of a depth move and one that you could do another one of these and get him. Like, it's not going to be an incredibly pricey contract that you'd have to dish out to give to get Nikita, but it's the conversation that we've had this entire show and we've had for the entire last 2 months. It's where are we at in the rebuild? If this is just going to be another kind of patch off season, we sign some low level guys, take some risks on some guys, sign some projects, whatnot, and just kind of tape our way to next off season, then maybe this deserves more of a serious look. But in the same breath, I could very much see, again, like it wouldn't take a crazy contract to bring him in. I could see them getting a top line talent and still that. I mean, and still him rather. There is a lot of holes on this team still,
Well, and
and
that
plenty that need to be filled. And we still have a lot of money at our what's the word I'm trying to think of, expense disposal. And yeah, I could see a plethora of different angles, and somebody like that fits into more than one of them for sure.
Well, and that is in the end, guys. I mean, to wrap a nice, pretty bow on this, what makes today so interesting? Because, things may have already happened by the time you guys listen to this, but Scotty and I truly do not know because of the fact that Steve Yzerman has not told anyone, has not shown his hand, because this is what he's so good at, and I respect the hell out of him for doing so. We don't know what his plan is. We don't know if he's trying to make a huge step forward. I know in the exit interview, he said, I might bring in 5 players. You might not like any 5 of them, which kind of, I guess, may have been served as a hint, but we have an idea. We might still be biding our time another year, but nobody could know. So he might go out there and make a huge pitch for Johnny Gaudreau, and we have no evidence to suggest that he is. We have plenty of evidence suggesting that it'll be the Islanders and the Flyers making huge bids at him. But that's why we come up with these hypotheticals, because we're trying our best to get in the head of a guy who doesn't show his hand.
Right.
And try and look at guys who, if we were Steve Yzerman, would be interesting based on history that he has shown thus far as to how he's doing this rebuild. So in the end, we think guys like Ondrej Palat, Vincent Trocheck, the Strome brothers, and Kulak and Zadorov would be perfect guys for what we believe Yzerman is doing. But in the end, we can't know because Steve Yzerman doesn't let us know. So these are guys we believe would be good fits.
Yeah, nobody knows. Nobody's ever gonna know. But man, free agency's fun. I can't wait. It's gonna start like right away too. Drop of a hat, you're gonna see some stuff happen.
It's like, it's like I said on Twitter. It's like Christmas Day for hockey fans. Okay. It really is. I'm not gonna say the thing. I'm not gonna say the thing, but it's very much it's Christmas Day for hockey fans, and we don't know. Like it's like unwrapping the present of the Christmas tree. Like, what player do we get this year? Yeah, because we don't know if this team is going to be buyers yet. We don't, and that's the exciting part. I understand why people are getting impatient because people want us to start being buyers, but it's impossible to know. I go back and forth all the time. I'm like, this is the time, and then no, maybe not. It's so hard.
It's going to be very fun.
Hard, but fun.
Yes.
All right. Any final thoughts?
We ball.
Thanks for making Locked On Red Wings your first listen every single day. Now make your second listen Locked On NHL. Locked On experts give you daily 30-minute podcasts on all things NHL all year long. Stay up to date on everything in the hockey world. Locked On NHL, your daily 30-minute NHL podcast. We'll be back with a new episode tomorrow, hopefully recapping some of the moves that I knew you were going to say something. Some of the moves that Steve Yzerman has made.
I can't. No, tomorrow's episode is going to be sweet. It's going to be the most, the most. I don't know. We've had plenty of content, and we have, thanks to the listeners and everything, we have not run short on content, and we've had a really fun off season already. But this will be the first tangible content. You know what I'm trying to say? This is the like a move.
It's no longer hypothetical
happening. Right. Exactly. This could actually be like someone is joining our hockey team. So it'll be a super fun. The rest of the week, honestly, should be really fun.
Yeah, Scotty had to save that there because he threw me off by DMing me in the private chat. Just so you guys know, that's why I got awkward and confused there, and was like, "This son of a gun." All right, same time, same place. It's your team every day.
Every day.